Welcome to On the Table with Ashley. This is part 2 of our episode with Dr. Woodward and Autumn Bear, and episode 7 of our wellness series, where we take a deep dive into the true meaning of wellness, cutting through the noise of quick fixes and fleeting health trends to uncover what wellness truly looks like. Each episode, you'll hear from experts across different fields as they share how they approach health, from physical and mental health to holistic and alternative practices, to give you real lasting ways to care for your mind, body, and spirit. Our guests this episode are Dr. Kelly Woodward and Autumn Bear, who we are so excited to welcome back onto the podcast for a second episode. Dr. Kelly Woodward is a preventive and family medicine physician with over 30 years of experience in lifestyle and integrative health, with a career that includes serving as a consultant in public health and a 22-plus year tenure in the U.S. Air Force, retiring as a colonel. Dr. Woodward brings deep expertise in chronic disease prevention, longevity, and lifestyle medicine. After leading wellness programs at Intermountain Park City Hospital, he joined the Autumn Bear Wellness Collective, where he focuses on helping patients thrive through balanced longevity and mindful living. Autumn Bear is the founder of the Autumn Bear Wellness Collective, a space where modern medicine meets ancient healing. Trained in Chinese medicine and acupuncture, Autumn blends traditional medicine and spirituality to guide people towards deeper wellness and self-connection. Autumn holds a Master of Public Health from the University of Arizona, licensed in acupuncture in Utah and New York, and a board-certified diplomat. Autumn has taught in global programs integrating acupuncture into medical settings. Her work focuses on whole person healing, community connection, and empowering people to take on active roles in their health. Enjoy.
Well, let's talk about connection and community a bit more. Women tend to be, and this is a generalization, women tend to be better at this than men. One of the things I've really loved moving to Park City, I feel like my husband has made so many friends and has so many wonderful friendships and is frankly doing really well on that side, where in San Francisco where we lived less so, which may be partially a symptom of life, like busyness of life and the time in our lives where we were focused on our careers and other things as well. But talk to us a little bit about connection and how you encourage patients to increase that, that number 4 of the plan. And is there a standout story where somebody did make a change and noticed like a big health improvement?
I have had some experience, and it's mostly with men who I've seen as they get older and retired. I've talked to men who literally have said to me, I don't have a problem in the world. What's wrong with me? Something's not right. I have all the money I need. My kids are fine. I got a nice house, but I don't feel good. I don't feel right. And I believe we are biologically a mammal that is a social mammal. There are other mammals that are social mammals. Lots of them are. What's kind of in the deep essence of that, and I don't think we entirely know the biology and physiology and chemistry of it, and that's okay. I think that we got to get out of the notion that until we prove all that, we can't believe it. We as a social species means you have responsibility to others, and they have responsibility and that you expect of them. That's what social creatures have, is they need each other. You have responsibility to each other and obligations to each other and expectations to show up as a member of a community. That really is what works best. We have, unfortunately, in our modern culture, kind of engineered that out a bit, which is a very unfortunate thing, to not have other people around and basically kind of get by. But in the long game, it actually doesn't work.
So with this patient who came in, what did you suggest? Do you remember the outcome?
I don't remember how the conversation went. This patient I remember most strikingly is because when it sort of was one I like, holy cow, now this is the most explicit sort of description of the problem. In other words, I don't have any other problem. What's wrong with me? I said, I know ultimately what happened is and I don't remember whether it was I don't know that it was our conversation, but somewhere along the way, he recognized what many people do, that you have to show up for something. Humans expect you to show up for something, and you have to have things that you're expected to show up for. That's the way I kind of think it works. For example, if you look at there's an indigenous remote village in southwestern China that I can never remember the name of, that actually was the sort of discrete population in the planet that had the highest proportion of people living over 100 years. And people went in and studied them, and what they found was most remarkable about their social culture. They have all the other physical things. They were gardeners for a living, but everybody had a job until the day they died. And as you got older, your job might change, for sure, right? So when you're 90, you're not the person carrying the crops up the hill, but you might be the person in the house making sure the kids didn't burn it down.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And if you didn't do that, somebody else was going to have to do it, and they wouldn't be able to bring the crops up the field, right? So these people they were expected to show up.
So it's less, what I'm hearing is it's less about a sense of community. It's more about a sense of belonging and having a role.
I also, when I was listening to Kelly talk about this, one of the things that struck me, is I was thinking about dogs. And why do you think that man's best friend is the dog? It's because the companionship and the feelings that come being with and around something or someone that you love and who love you back. I do think that we can't mitigate also the experience of how we feel. The connectedness, like what does it feel like, if, for example, you come into my office and I'm like, Ashley, I was thinking about you this weekend and I brought you this book that I really love. It feels really nice to have that experience. Yeah. And if you think about what that looks like in a community of people, the connection that you're having, the experience of being part of something that is bigger than you, it is also about the joys and love and the other emotional experiences that we have as part of that. And I think that's what makes pack animals, so to speak, truly connected, because it's not just about it is about taking care of each other, and it's about being taken care of, right? And I think those two pieces go hand in hand. We can't expect to get everything without giving, but the giving part of being part of community and connected with people is often what feels the best. And that's, like if you think about, like, I know my parents, I've got two small kids, and they will often, we're separated, they're in a different state, but there are so many moments in time when they are thinking about my kids and thinking about the things that bring them joy and the connectivity, and watching that connectivity together and learning from people, right? We learn from each other, right? Mm-hmm. There's things that we get from someone who says, right, even just this conversation, we're learning about things from each other. You're like, that's really neat, right? You can't really look at someone, if you put one person in a room, you can't really gauge their personality. You can't really gauge much about them. You don't really understand them until you put them in a group of people to see all the different facets of that person. And, medicine is similar. You can't really understand, like with needles, when I use a needle, you can't do a treatment with one needle because it's about the connectivity and the communication of those needles that come together. And so I think when you look at a larger whole, connectivity has so many rings, right, that kind of go circulate around. And when it comes to our health, the connectivity that we experience with one another most certainly comes from the give and the take, the experience, the feelings, the being part of something greater than us, regardless of religious affiliation.
So maybe, Kelly, when you were talking about this culture in China, and so what I heard was everybody has a role until they die, but it's not just the fact of having a role. It's that in having a role, you are opening yourself to all of the experiences that come with the role. So the interactions of caring for and being cared for.
Absolutely. Right. No, I think that's exactly right. And it changes over lifetime, and how that might play out can be highly variable due to physical ability or whatever. But it's just fundamentally that we have to embrace that none of us can go it alone. In fact, and you shouldn't want to go it alone. That's probably been proven to not be a very successful strategy.
Yes. So we were just talking about, is there a specific patient interaction you can think of? I'm wondering if either of you can share a patient interaction that you can recall, or a study that you read or a colleague shared with you that dramatically impacted the way that you practice.
I think that's such a good question.
Well, the one I remember most goes way back in my career, and it was subtle. Excuse me, I had a patient when I was very early out of residency practicing family medicine, and she was then about the age I am now, so she seemed quite old to me. And I know I seemed quite young to her because she reminded me that I wasn't old enough to be a doctor. But this woman, her name was Jean, and I was seeing her fairly regularly because she had a lot of problem with asthma. And the problem was that not only did Jean have asthma, but she smoked. She was a smoker. And, that's a bad combination. And I was her family doctor for 5 or 6 years. And over that journey, I was feeling like, gosh, she has to quit smoking. If she would just quit smoking, we would talk about it. And she would listen. Then she'd come back with her next severe asthma attack, and we'd talk about it and treat her and talk about it. One day, Jean comes into my office and she says, "Hey, I wanted to let you know I quit smoking." I said, "What? Great. How did you do that? That's fabulous. What finally worked?" She said, "Oh, you did." I said, "I did?" She said, "Yeah. You just stuck with me. You gently reminded me, and I finally figured it out and did it." And that was all it was. And again, kind of subtle, but it struck me as, wow, just the relationship, the ability as humans to help each other in even subtle ways. I reflect on it because I know medically, technically, people get pretty animated about that and just say, "I can't help you if you don't quit smoking." But I learned along the way that's never my approach. I'm here to help people, but they got their challenges, their barriers, their issues, and I'm not going to help them by just telling them I can't help them anymore. I'm not sure how that helps them very often.
Yeah.
But so it's kind of the stick-to-itness, the caring. I think it really impressed upon me that, man, caring kind of works.
Which is also interesting because I spoke with a friend who's a physician, and she is also very naturally empathetic. But I feel like a lot of training for physicians is you have to kind of create a barrier between you and your patient, especially if they have cancer, if they have a very difficult diagnosis. You have to protect yourself from the pain and suffering of your patients in some way as well, which may lead you to be less empathetic and caring. And we certainly know through experience some physicians don't have a great bedside manner. That should really be studied in a controlled way to understand if health outcomes are different if your physician doesn't have the bedside manner and the ability to care and connect with you in that way.
I find that to be a really interesting conversation because I do feel like there is somewhere, and I didn't go to traditional medical school, so I don't know what they taught you in school. Do they actually teach you to say you need to be removed from your patients, you need to hold a distance? Is that actually a thing that?
Well, I don't recall it being kind of a part of some lecture, but I do think it was kind of the practice sort of tone that we got from a lot of when you went out and started working with other physicians who were ahead of you and were teaching you. Yeah, but I don't remember having a PowerPoint slide thrown up on the screen to tell us about that.
I do think that there's a big difference between ethical boundaries, and holding back emotional investment. And I think for me, something that's just who I am, I do think that obviously ethical boundaries are you don't do things that are going to harm somebody or have interactions with someone that is not to their best interest. And I think that's one thing. But I hug my patients. I genuinely believe in the connectivity of our experience together. Absolutely. Because we're in it together. And I think for me, when you're asking that experience, as a budding practitioner, I wanted to change the world. I was like, yes, I've got all this information. I'm going to give it to everybody. And it took a little while to realize not everybody is going to hear what you have to say if they're not ready. And as I grew as a practitioner, I think the thing that changed my practice the most and how I practice was everybody I see is either sick or dying. And was with a lot of patients in different ways. And I see everybody who's got all kinds of things. And it is the human connection that we forge that matters so much to the outcome of what they hear, what they experience. And I have to understand and know that I can't expect perfection, and I can't expect just because I say something that someone's suddenly going to be able to change 30, 40 years of a habit overnight. And I can't get frustrated with a person if they don't, because they have to be able to show up for themselves first, and they have to be able to show up. I'm just there to help them navigate that path. And I think the biggest strides that I've certainly seen, I had a patient who, she had dysautonomia as a result of multiple head traumas. And dysautonomia is essentially where your autonomic system is not functioning properly. So she had weird sleep cycles, and her digestion was off. And she had kind of given this idea that that was just something that she was going to have to deal with. And well, first and foremost, I don't believe that that's true. I really believe that there are many ways in which we can manage care. And it may not be perfect, but I'm not one of those people that just goes, well, that's just it, right? And so because of her condition and because of all the multitude of things that she would come in with, we were constantly having to adjust and adjust and adjust and adjust. It taught me patience. It taught me that if you are patient and you care, that so many great things are possible. And she came in, and when I first started to see her, she could either pick up her children from school or go to Walmart. Those were her options. That was what her life had become. And I was like, well, I think that's unacceptable. And I was like, I am going to do all the things that I can to make that different. And we worked on so many things. And it took us a year. I mean, a year is a long time. It takes persistence, and it takes understanding that you have to course correct. But in the end, and now I run into her, and at the end of this year, I said to her, what are your goals, right? Because you went from having to either choose from seeing, like going to pick up your kids or Walmart. What are your goals? And she said, I really want to run. And I was like, okay, well, let's do that then. And we started the path forward of little by little. And, now every once in a while, I will in fact run into her running on a trail somewhere. And she does about 5 miles every couple of days, which is a massive accomplishment for someone who could barely. And the things that I learned from her were to understand that things don't change overnight.
Yeah.
I need to be patient and compassionate and kind and just continue to show up for her no matter what the challenge is, right? And to not be discouraged as a practitioner, to say, I may not have the perfect answer, but I'm going to figure some things out, and I'm going to help you find the right people. Even if I can't do it, I'm going to help you find the right people so that you get what you need. And I think that was really helpful.
I mean, it's fascinating that both of you, like, your answers are about being compassionate and caring and kind, which is not the first thing people would, I think of in a healthcare practice. So I think it's so fundamental. And I would also say it's equally as important for the patient to feel that towards themselves. So it's hard to change habits like smoking or nutrition habits, even exercise habits or sleep. All of these things, we make the decision every day, but they're hard. Yeah. And so to be patient with ourselves, compassionate towards ourselves, and kind to ourselves. Don't give up. It might take 5 years.
And it won't be perfect, and there'll be setbacks. Give yourself the grace to just, you're working on habits. Just keep moving forward.
You pick it up the next day.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that one little dimension of whether physicians display caring and empathy, there's a huge emphasis now, given how much technical knowledge and technical resources we have to look into and to treat and manipulate human health. And that's kind of the bulk of the real hard sort of learning and training that physicians go through. And there's an expectation in our culture that we get it technically correct, right? We do the right test, we prescribe the right medicine or the right surgery or whatever. And sometimes the drive for efficiency sometimes makes it hard to do all of that and care.
Yeah.
I think I would actually say most of our colleagues, I would say most of them are probably very caring people. I think some are in a circumstance where it's the demands on their time, which I don't think should be levied on the patient personally, but that's kind of the way it's manifest, makes it hard. And then, so I think then this whole kind of thing about creating a boundary is much more about compartmentalizing so that you can move on to the next thing.
Right.
And that's probably a fundamental problem, I feel like, in relationships, and certainly in the primary care specialties, where, quite honestly, the long-term relationship can be powerful.
Yeah.
Anyway, so
That's true.
so I'm empathetic to that for
Yeah.
my colleagues.
Yeah.
Completely. And I mean, let's just say that physicians spend many, many years of their lives to become physicians. And the objective of that is to help humans. I mean, for every single physician, I think both the healthcare system or the predominant healthcare system works against this ability to spend time with the patient because you have to see so many patients a day. And that has to do with our healthcare system and insurance and all of these things that, again, we're not going to get into today that are problematic. But I also do think, you know, physicians are humans too. And some are more empathetic than others. And that is just like the reality of it.
Yes, no doubt.
And, you know, so it's partially just that.
Exactly.
And then I think it's also partially that over time, physicians in traditional Western medicine have become more specialists. So I only work on this part of the shoulder or the knee or the heart or what have you. And so you're so zoned in on like, I'm going to fix this part of you that you might forget that it's a person.
It's attached to somebody.
That it's attached to a person.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And there are positives to that too.
Oh, absolutely.
Absolutely. So Kelly, what do you think it takes to become a great doctor? Is it the length of time practicing, the perspective that you have, the experiences you've had, the studying that you did in medical school, all of the above? What do you think?
For my, kind of some of that's shaped a little by the conversation we were just having. You know, I think it does take a little different things for different specialties. I mean, for example, there are certain surgical specialties where, you know, it is primarily a technical task, or spine surgery or orthopedic surgery.
Yeah.
I mean, cardiovascular, I mean, all these surgeries. And so that I think is that is focused much more weighted on the technical side. For my side, which is more on the longevity, wellness, primary care, you know, taking, you know, kind of try to kind of understand the whole person, it's really about listening. And I've had patients who that is the first, most of my patients over the years, you know, I get, you know, see my reviews come back, and that's what they appreciated most. And listening is time consuming.
Yeah.
Right? And it's listening genuinely with curiosity. And because what I learned was how much I learned from my patients by listening. And by being curious. It's amazing. And it kind of hooks me in a way. I mean, in a way that is kind of it's part of that goes all the way back to my youth. It kind of pokes at that wonder I always had. It's like, holy cow, I learned so much from my patients. Wow. And it's by listening. And it's also then the next part of it is with listening and curiosity and having done well enough to get the basics of medical education and all the knowledge there, to then reconcile kind of the person's physiology and their circumstance. In other words, how do we make sense of it? Because it's not, I mean, I'm not a big proponent of just having chat sessions with people.
Right.
Although I know people appreciate that sometimes, but that's not my, you know, that's not, anyway. So it's then, okay, now how do I translate that into how can I help you? Is to have, you know, the ability to start to reconcile what is all this I've heard and how do these pieces fit together and how does that match how we know the human body works?
Yeah.
And how we can improve it. That's, to me, what I find is kind of my what I strive for, but what I also think is kind of successful certainly in the longevity and the wellness world.
And maybe also what continues to drive you doing your work?
It is my trap. I mean, I'm a little addicted to it. And because it sits as a place of wonder. And I'm like, wow, people. And what I concluded is, I think pretty much everybody I meet's interesting. It's like, everybody's interesting. I now go into it like, well, I mean, I'm now kind of conscious of it. It was kind of subconscious maybe before, but now I'm like, this will be interesting.
Yeah.
And it always is.
It is.
And that is why I do this podcast, because everybody's interesting. Everybody has something interesting to say and to teach us. And also, like, my brand, Amatand, is like curiosity and listening are two of like the fundamentals. So it's interesting. A lot of the conversation we've had today focused on wellness and health, I would say, is generally applicable just to life. One of the concerns I have is that people are falling away from listening and curiosity, generally speaking. So let's bring them back. And Autumn, I was thinking as Kelly was talking, I feel like you are a very good listener too. And then you also like every time I come to you, you ask me questions and you listen, and then you take my pulses. And so I'm interested, like, are you listening equally to my words and my body?
Well,
how do you?
That's a good question. So just to give the people who are listening a little context. So part of the diagnostics of Chinese medicine are what we call the pulses. And there's this idea that each organ has its own pulse. And there are 28 qualities to those pulses. So when I'm taking the pulses for the heart, the small intestine, large intestine, I'm basically listening or feeling for each of those different qualities, and those qualities give me information about what's happening internally for you, right? And so what that helps me understand is what I'm hearing from what you're experiencing, and then I'm kind of cross-referencing those pulses to understand what's going on internally, and then I use those two pieces together to then design the treatment for where you are exactly in that space and time. So it is very individualized medicine, and so I'm looking at both. I'm hearing your experience, but I always ask my patients, what do you want to focus on today? Right? Because I want to be very specific and understanding. And then they are like so in a different space. They're like, no, my neck is kind of bugging me. You're like, oh, okay. So I have to make sure that I don't get too lost in what I find interesting, because I'm like you guys, I find people to be very interesting. And what I might want to tackle isn't what they want to tackle. So I have to understand that from you and where you are in that space and time, and then utilizing the resources that I have available to me. And an age-old practice, and they say in Chinese medicine that it takes 20 years to master the pulses. So you have to take thousands upon thousands of pulses to really look at what you feel in that experience and how that's going to influence, what points I choose, right? And so a lot of people will ask me, well, are they good? That's what they say. Are they good? And I'm like, well, it's not really a good and bad. It's really like, what are the quality of those pulses? Are they thin? Are they tight? Are they excess? Are they deficient? Is there some sort of underlying heat? Is there some sort of stagnation? Right? Those are the things that I'm looking for, because then I specifically will choose points that then transform that element of the body.
Yeah.
Because each point has a job and a connection. And so that's what I'm listening to.
Okay. Before we go, I like to ask the same 5 questions to every guest. Before we get into that, is there anything that I have not asked either of you that you would like to make sure listeners know or hear?
One thing I think people should appreciate, because when it comes to the foundational sort of elements of good health and longevity and wellness, what I find people have to do is they have to believe to see to believe. In other words, sleep. If somebody doesn't say, I'm going to try that, you will really, most people convince themselves that doesn't apply to me. Or that a little bit of more movement in your day is going to you're going to start to feel better. Yoda said in Star Wars Episode 1, believing is seeing. And I have found that's a little bit of it, and that's our job, is to help. I feel like sometimes I have to just help people understand so that they can then get enough belief to start to make a few changes, because then I'm pretty confident that they're then going to see it, the result, which then it reinforces the belief. So that's why I've changed it to believing is seeing is believing. And that, I think, is really powerful in human behavior and human health.
I mean, I think by nature, based on the type of practice that I have, people are incredibly skeptical to begin with. So I think it is, for me, a combination of, most of the time people will come to me because they have a problem and they've tried a bunch of other things and they're like, I'm kind of at a loss. I'm going to try acupuncture. Or someone in their family was like, you should try acupuncture. And I do feel like there's a healthy level of skepticism when people walk through my door. And I feel like it is a combination of warmly educating someone and saying, here is what I know to be true. Here are things that I understand. I think you should try them. I usually try to convince them, like, what's the worst that's going to happen? You try it for 3 weeks or a month. I mean, you've lost nothing, right? So a lot of times it is convincing people to give it a try. And then there's this relationship that I feel like I have to build with my patients, so that there's some element of trust that comes in, because I do feel like people are taking a big leap of faith with me, because it is, there's a lot of people that would consider it a pseudoscience, or I can't even tell you how many people come into my office that believe it is either like some voodoo magic or just magic in general. They're like, it couldn't be based on anything real, right? And I feel like having a little faith, whether it be in me or faith in the idea that there are great things out there that are possible, I think there's always a really nice space of having a little belief first before there is proof, because sometimes you got to take a little step off that edge to make change. And so sometimes you just got to give it a go.
Got to jump.
You got to jump.
Yeah.
Got to jump.
Also true in life.
Also
generally.
true in life.
Okay, last questions. The first one, as we explore in my brand Amatand, objects can hold a lot of meaning for us. They can tie us to the past, enable to enjoy the present, or even take us into the future. And I know you've done this, Autumn, but maybe you have a different one. Can each of you share an object from your life, whether you still have it or not, that holds a lot of meaning for you, and tell us why?
I have to laugh because mine is as a point of contention in my house. I have a little rock collection. And to me, and my wife is like, why do we keep that rock? I mean, it's just rocks. And they're not like rare rocks. But, in my youth, I was curious and I was out there looking at stuff and picking stuff up. And I like that one. And I was learning a little geology. So there's a few different, types of rocks that I specifically have. And they just are kind of a precious reminder of kind of wandering about and just appreciating life. And it's not that big a collection, so it's not even taking up that much space. But it's in an old, crumpled up bunch of paper. I just kind of fold them up and and there they are stuck in a drawer. And every now and then my wife encounters them and says, we still have these. And I say, yeah, I kind of like them. I don't know. Yeah. Anyway, it's kind of funny.
I also have a collection of rocks.
Oh,
that I have carded. I have literally carded like this huge, heavy box of rocks around to every house that I have ever lived in, every office. That I have rocks on my windowsill now. I have rocks that I have collected since I was a child, and I don't know what it is about rocks in particular, but I also do love rocks. I'm not really a person of permanence. I don't really particularly collect things. I'm not a collector. I don't really collect a lot of anything. Occasionally I will hold on to some item somewhere that I'm like, oh, I really like this. I have a couple of pieces of furniture that are like, I'm emotionally connected to. But it's funny because I often, my husband is a bit of a pack rat, and I'm always like, God, just get rid of this crap. And I always want to but yet I have rocks. I have rocks that I cart around all over the place. So, yep.
Oh, you're welcome.
Yeah.
Because you're not going to be more tolerant of his rocks, even though they're not the same rocks.
He doesn't have any rocks.
But
I also have some rocks, but mine were when we used to go on. I have three sisters, so we were kind of a big family. So we didn't travel that much when I was a kid, but we would be like driving to Tahoe or driving. So on the way, we would stop at certain places where they would sell like amethyst or like pretty geodes. So I have them. I don't have them out. I have them like in a keepsake box. I love asking this question because I believe that objects are just vessels for memories, and maybe as a time in your life or a person in your life or something. And it's always so interesting to hear what people come up with. So thank you for sharing. Can you also share a favorite tradition with us? It could be something from when you were children, something you do with your families now, anything at all.
I think the last time I was here, I talked about my Christmas pickle. So Bodhi was learning all about different traditions around the holidays, and they were learning about a German tradition, which was that they hide these pickles in the Christmas tree, and he drew a Christmas pickle, which I now have framed in my house. But then we happened to be in a Christmas store around the holidays, and there was this box of 6 Christmas pickle ornaments, because apparently they've got little numbers on them, and whoever finds the number 1 gets to open the first package, or one of those. It was one of those, and I don't even know so much about the tradition, but I just wanted Christmas pickles. So now
it's becoming a tradition.
So now our tradition is we have pickle ornaments that we hang on our tree. Yeah.
That's great. I have a broad, big family that has tangles kind of around the western United States. And we have this unspoken sort of tradition that if there is any excuse for a family gathering, everybody who can possibly make it makes it.
That sounds
And
like
it's
fun.
sometimes it might be a special birthday, it might be a graduation. You know, one of my nephews went on a mission, left for a mission for his church, and everybody showed up. Or it might even be a death in the family. And whatever it is, it's kind of this, we don't even necessarily talk that much about it, other than sometimes we remind the younger ones that this is just what family does. And it's kind of scattered around the calendar year, depending on when events happen, but it's, at least once a year, a big gathering occurs for some organic reason.
And can you remember where or when that was born? Like, was it at what generation?
Yeah, I would say it was with my grandparents.
Okay.
And somewhere along that way, I don't know then, maybe I was young, and maybe the patriarch or somebody, or the matriarch said, we're getting together, everybody better be there. I don't know. But that's kind of how it happened, and it continues. I think we all feel the power of it.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's just kind of what we do. No, it is really remarkable. And some people who might experience it, because sometimes, friends and other people who we just met might find themselves at one of these things, are like, this is kind of amazing.
That's
Yeah.
cool.
I've never seen this many people get together for a birthday party. That's our tradition.
Yeah.
I love it. I love it. Are you in a phase in your life where you enjoy entertaining in your home? Why or why not? Why don't you start, Kelly?
Yeah, yes, naturally from the gatherings, because they have to be someplace, and so we spread it around, and so everybody has to be kind of into entertaining a little. We definitely enjoy entertaining in our house. Interestingly, though, just like life, it's changed over the years. It isn't, I think it's much more low-key, much more about intimate conversational sort of opportunities than it is about even, not so much about even the spread of food or the decorations or anything like that. But we do, what we call entertaining might be, some people, in fact, I think I did have one of my cousins once say, this isn't very entertaining. We were having a great time. He was like, where's the
entertainment?
Where's the entertainment?
What about you, Autumn?
I would say one of the things that I really love is just having an open door policy. When we lived in New York, we lived in a neighborhood, and everybody always knew that our door was always open. Sometimes we would come home and our kids had a nanny, and half the nannies from the neighborhood would all be at our house, and they were Latin, and they'd be playing music and dancing, and that was just our house. Everybody knows that, like, we have an absolute open door policy. We have a lot of international friends, and we always like to entertain them if they'd like to come and visit us. I think there's something so beautiful about sharing food and sharing time, but there's something I really love about everybody in their pajamas. Those are the moments when you share the best times with people, is when, I always have a puzzle on my counter, and so I, sitting around a puzzle, just, putting pieces in our pajamas, it is the times that, that I really remember the most with everyone, and there's a certain intimacy to it, and I just think that, and it still goes. I mean, it is an absolute open door policy, and, week to week we are quite busy, but there is inevitably somebody who will float to our house somewhere, somehow, and our kids aren't even teenagers yet, but I'd like to hope that their friends will feel like they're welcome at our house too. Like there's something very magical about
Yeah.
I can tell you that is going to serve you well.
Yeah.
Our daughters are older, young adults, and we have always kind of had this open door policy, and our house was the gathering sort of place. But even now, it's like, bring all your strays. We went to Colorado to see our daughter last year for Thanksgiving, rented a place, thought we were going to have, 5 of us, had 14 of us. Said, I don't know, whoever's
Welcome.
whoever's available,
Just
you're
pop
welcome.
over. Yeah.
And I have to tell you, man, that is the most rewarding thing,
Yeah.
is to get together a bunch of young adults and just embrace that, man, what an amazing conversations.
Yeah,
What
that's
a
cool.
neat thing. And of course, sometimes we've found them living in our house, which is fine, but we have to kind of keep now a little log of what rooms are available.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I agree.
Yeah,
That
it
is so rich.
It is.
Well, I love asking this question because I feel like the whole point of my brand is to encourage people to gather and spend time together, which is really like number 4 on your plan, right? Community. And there are a myriad ways of achieving this. There's not one way, and it doesn't have to be like a beautiful spread and sit down dinner. And I think that's intimidating to a lot of people. It's really just opening like your home and your heart and allowing things to transpire, which is so beautiful. And I do also think like we have seasons in our lives, and what it looks like to bring people into our home changes over time. And that's beautiful too, you know? Each of you, can you give me 1 or 2 top resources? They could be, it does not have to be about wellness. It could be just your favorite book. Like Autumn, you need to recommend the book that you recommended to me, to Kelly.
My Family and Other Animals.
Have you read that?
I'm going to bring you a copy.
no.
It is
Wonderful.
It is one of my favorites.
You're going to love it. It
Yeah.
sounds like who you were as a
Yeah,
child.
yeah.
So it could just be a favorite book, or it could be like a podcast or a website or anything.
I'm an avid reader, and there are many, many books that I absolutely love, but the ones that I would say that I come back to, so My Family and Other Animals by Gerald Durrell is an absolutely magical book about a young family. The woman becomes a widow. She's got 4 children. They're all very quirky, and they live in England. They end up moving to the island of Corfu. And it's about kind of like the unfolding of each of their lives in all their quirky little ways, and all within the island of Corfu, who also has this collection of characters that live on this island. It's such a fun book. There's actually a couple of them that are, it's a series. The other book I have that is one of my favorites is actually about a woman who, her name is, it's called Here If You Need Me, and it's about by this woman named Kate Braystrup. And she is married, has 4 children, you know, and her husband, who's in law enforcement, is considering becoming a pastor at this like Universalist church. And he's really contemplating this life change. So he goes out to work one morning, and a guy runs a stop sign, hits him, and he dies instantly. And she is left with these 4 young children. She's a writer. And she decides to fulfill his life dream. And this is a true story. This is her true story. And she becomes the pastor for the game wardens of Maine. And she goes out on all of the search and rescue and body recoveries and all these things. And she is their pastor. And she's magical. Her book, it is about death, but it's also about rebirth. It's about mourning and loss, and about finding also joy within that process. And she's a magical writer, and she makes it's hard to imagine that you can talk about grief and also make it funny, but she does a really incredible job. And it's not a very big book, but it's a very soulful and incredible book. And so we were just talking about this the other day.
And I just started it last night.
Yeah, it's really good. I mean, I could go on and on, but I would say top of my list, those are 2 that I recommend often to people.
Great. I'm going to be a little overachiever here. First, I would say people should read the newspaper.
Oh, yeah.
Because, in fact, the first thing I was taught when I was in public health school was the most important public health journal is the newspaper. People should be generally kind of aware of what are the dynamics, and probably really focus more on the details locally, a little more awareness of nationally maybe, but I think people should read a newspaper or 2. Not every page of every article and everything, but just to kind of generally know what's going on. I think it's very important for health and community. I do recommend the book Sapiens by Yuval Harari. It's a bit of a dense tome, but it's about how the human species came to be what we experience today. And it follows the knowledge, or best we know, of how we became the physical, spiritual, political, geographically located people that we are today. It's really incredible. Bill Gates really liked it too.
I've read it.
And then this will seem maybe a bit of a stretch, but I actually recommend the periodical Science News. It's a publication by the Society for Science and the Public. It covers a broad variety of scientific advancements, but has quite a bit on health and wellness and what we're learning in a way that's easy to read. It's not dense.
It's digestible. It's not for
dense.
experts
It's
necessarily.
by science, by the Society for Science and the Public, meaning it's supposed to be there for the average person. And I do find it quite fascinating. It's very interesting. There's, again, another one where you don't read everything. I struggle a bit with, astrophysics. Anyway, and then my final thing is I have a recommendation for my colleagues, my medical colleagues. I think everybody should get the latest edition of their favorite textbook of physiology and have it around, because you'll find yourself occasionally opening it, reading about something, going, what have we learned about that? Yeah. And read for, so part of it is reading with, back to our kind of roots, it's reading with curiosity and to broaden your knowledge, not reading to validate what you already know.
Yes.
Yeah.
Which is a trap.
Yes.
So there you go.
It's amazing. Well, I'm just finishing a mini series on how to create a good book club, because I've never been able to do that, and I love to read too. And so I'm going to try to start one. But one of the things is to have 12 members. Every member chooses one book a month. So you get the diversity of the books, and then that person is responsible for leading the discourse. So it's actually like relatively formal process. Anyway, there's some really good learnings from it, but I think the diversity is really important. Right.
Yeah.
And that's why I like to ask this question, because I get all these different recommendations. I read all these books I would never have read.
Yeah, it's true.
So I love that diversity.
What are you reading right now? Well, you are reading the one that I recommended, but did you have something else?
Well, the other one that I'm reading, and I don't normally read 2 books at a time, but you recommended this to me. It sounded so good. So I went out and got it, is The Autobiography of a Yogi, which was recommended by your friend, who I also just interviewed for the podcast on. Yeah,
Dr. Amit Anand. Oh, I'll have to check that out. Are you reading something right now?
Yeah, I'm reading a book called Death After Life After Deadpool. It's actually Life After Deathpool. This is a real local thing mostly, but it's about the decline of Lake Powell, which is
I've read that a lot.
Yes. And the issue is that the title comes from Life After Deadpool. Deadpool is the point at which Lake Powell, unfortunately, the way they engineered it, about 200 feet from the bottom of the dam is the lowest that any effluent for the water to flow out is.
Right.
So it's going to get to there, and then it's just going to be this what they call a dead pool. But the premise of the book is that we need to appreciate that a lot of things are reemerging in what has become uncovered. And I'm reading it because my daughter actually does research in that area, and she actually worked with the author, and it's really kind of fascinating. But it's a very, it's not a novel or anything. It's a local, true, understand what's happening in nearby kind of thing.
Interesting. Currently, at this moment, on my nightstand is the second volume of the short stories of Sherlock Holmes.
Fun.
Yeah, it's
So
fun.
good.
Yeah.
So good. Yeah. So well written.
Yeah.
There's so many good things to read.
It's endless. I'm
Endless.
never bored.
I keep a book list on my phone. It's like, it's barely catching up. Now I'm behind.
I actually listen to books in the car, especially if it's nonfiction, because often by the end of a long day, nonfiction is a little harder for me at night. And then I usually do my fiction reading at night.
Yeah. Okay, last question. What do you do for yourself? You guys have dedicated your lives to helping others. Do you have a practice, a focus, a habit, or daily routine that contributes to your success or your well-being?
Yes, absolutely. I would say the things that I cultivate daily, I get up at 5:30 in the morning and I do 30 minutes of a variety type of mindful meditation, gratitude. I do some work around compassion and forgiveness, and really kind of mindfully looking towards the future, almost kind of like that concept of, not necessarily getting caught up too far ahead in the future and in dreams, but setting really great thoughts for myself and things that I would like to achieve. And I do feel like that has tremendous power. And I also work a lot on kind of thinking through the perfect day. So each day I wake up and look at how perfectly that day will go, essentially. Perfect is a funny word, but in theory, I move a lot anyway, just by nature of my work. And then I'm really thoughtful about the foods that I choose and not being too harsh. I really am an advocate of eating all the things. I like to eat all the things. So I don't really, other than, having a food sensitivity, but beyond that, I kind of go for it all. But in a healthy fashion, right? I really am thoughtful about the foods that I choose and eat and the joy that it brings me. I really love food so much. And so the joy of eating and living.
Yeah, so I do about 20 to 45 minutes a day of mostly a little work on balance and flexibility and strength. And it varies kind of on where I am and how the day's going. But always know that if I just get started and get in even if I have to kind of end on the shorter side, I work mostly on balance and calming, which also kind of creates a calming sort of sense. And lately, I've recently taken up Qigong and Tai Chi, which I find
Cool.
Really strikes me as that is a kind of a good way to embrace and improve on movement, balance, with in a fairly calm, mindful, mind-body kind of way that I can see that it's every bit as effective as, kind of people. For me, it's having the right effect. And part of the beauty of it is that it's not an expectation, like back to your dance, teaching people to dance thing. True, I guess, teachers of that will always remind everybody that it doesn't matter where you are in your ability to do this. It's the doing. It's not the medal. Nobody's getting a medal for this, and that's a cool feeling.
Do you know that Qigong and Tai Chi were designed specifically to activate all the channel systems?
Great.
And each movement has a particular affinity for a different channel that is activated.
Well, and that's what it's funny because as I'm doing it, and again, I haven't really studied it that much. I'm just kind of doing it and going it for that. I'm sitting there thinking, gosh, this is really thought out for very specific things. Power that I think we underappreciate about how our body is supposed to move, and there's certain movements have to be, they're really, the movements particularly in Tai Chi, a little more extreme, really make one aware that it isn't what we do mostly in our everyday motions in our modern society. Like, if you're a cyclist, which I appreciate, that's great, but that's a very narrow plane of motion. The repetitiveness has some value, but it doesn't do a lot of the cross-body sort of coordination that really challenges our brain. That's a very complex bunch of nerve functions that allow you to do certain motions and transition from one to the other in ways that a lot of our usual kind of activities really don't provoke at all. So I find it fascinating. It's kind of cool. And I have a little bit of a balance problem, so I really feel like it's helping tremendously, which I love.
I'll bring you a book bag.
Okay.
Yeah, I have a good one.
You can add it to your list.
Yeah, well,
my brother teaches Tai Chi also, so
that's amazing.
I credit him he kind of got me into it, and he would be the person that I think 10 years ago most people would go, yeah, he'll never do that.
Yeah.
He was a hard charging kind of business guy, didn't have time for that sort of stuff.
That's
now
right.
he's like teaching it down.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
super cool. It's really cool.
Well, I have never tried either. My sister practices Qigong, but now I look into these things.
It's beautiful. It's a beautiful thing.
It is.
Well, it has been a beautiful thing speaking with both of you today. Thank you so much for sharing your expertise, your insights, your time. It's really been wonderful. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
My pleasure. Yeah, thanks for having us.
Thanks for listening to an episode of On the Table with Ashley. Subscribing to, rating, and reviewing our show helps us to continue to make quality episodes. So please subscribe, rate, and review wherever you listen to podcasts. On the Table with Ashley is presented by Amatond, an elevated, everyday, luxury home and tableware brand with products designed to cultivate connection. You can learn more about Amatond at ameatendre.com or on Instagram at Amatond. By subscribing to our newsletter on the Amatond website, you'll receive updates on new episodes as well as promotions relating to Amatond and Amatond's products. Send us an email at reachoutanytime@amatond.com if you have ideas for guests or series ideas you'd like to pass along.